You know what's strange? Some of the most perceptive people you'll ever meet didn't develop that ability through practice or intention. They developed it because missing a signal once meant something went wrong. They learned to catch the frown someone rearranges into a smile before anyone else at the table notices, not because they wanted to, because not catching it had a cost. And if you've never understood why that kind of awareness makes you feel like you don't belong, this is where it starts to make sense. Researchers in cognitive psychology describe this as sensory processing sensitivity, a neurological trait where the brain processes emotional and environmental data at a depth most people never reach. It doesn't make you fragile, it makes you thorough in a world that isn't built for thoroughness. You walk into a room, and before anyone speaks, you've already measured it. Not consciously, your nervous system runs a scan you never asked for. Who is tense? Who is pretending? Who just had an argument they haven't mentioned yet? Your brain applies what psychologists call cognitive over-recruitment, high-level pattern analysis running in spaces that don't require it. You don't just enter a room, you inherit its emotional weather, and that inheritance weighs more than anyone around you realizes. You've been told your whole life that you're too serious. People say it casually, like it's a dial you forgot to turn down. But what they're actually observing is a processing gap. Their brain skims the surface. Yours goes to the floor. Your nervous system doesn't have a shallow mode. Growing up, this wasn't a personality trait. It was a necessity. And the depth that was built to keep you safe now reads as heaviness to people who never had to look that closely. Why does connection feel like performance? Why does belonging require editing yourself down? Why does being understood feel more exhausting than being alone? There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being understood in pieces. Someone values your advice but never asks how you're doing. Someone admires your calm but has no idea what it costs. You exist in fragments to the people around you. Each person holds a version of you that's convenient for them. Research in attachment theory calls this functional intimacy, relationships built on utility rather than true emotional reciprocity. You are deeply known for what you provide, but rarely known for who you are. You cancel plans you were genuinely looking forward to, not because you don't want to go, because the energy cost of performing normalcy is too high today. You already know what will happen. The small talk, the surface level questions, the smiling when you feel hollow. Psychologists describe this as social masking fatigue, the exhaustion of maintaining a version of yourself others find comfortable. Not a choice, a pattern. You notice the one person in the group who hasn't spoken yet. Everyone else is in the louder conversation, but your attention drifts to the quiet one sitting outside the circle. You see them because you are them. This is hyperempathy operating at a social level. A recognition engine trained to find the person most likely to be overlooked. You were that person once. In those early years, you learned what it felt like to be invisible. Your brain never stopped scanning for it in others. Everything you've recognized so far, these aren't social deficits. They are cognitive signatures of a mind built to observe before participating. The depth that isolates you is the same depth that makes you irreplaceable to the people who actually see you. That frown you caught across the table, it wasn't paranoia. It was your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. Understanding this changes nothing about the loneliness, but it reframes where it comes from. You have a hard time trusting compliments. Someone calls you talented or perceptive, and your first instinct is to search for the angle. You're not being cynical. You're running a pattern match against every time praise was followed by withdrawal. Psychologists refer to this as adaptive skepticism, a trust filter built in environments where affection was conditional. You learned early that the safest response to kindness is suspicion. And that suspicion now sits between you and everyone who might genuinely mean what they say. You over-explain yourself in conversations, not because you lack clarity, because you've learned that being misunderstood has consequences. You add context others don't need. You address objections no one was going to raise. Your brain treats every conversation as a potential courtroom. This is predictive processing applied to language. Your mind works overtime to prevent a misinterpretation that may never come. You are not rambling. You are defending a position before it's attacked. Why does your mind carry weight your body hasn't earned? Why do conversations your age feel foreign? Why does rest feel like something you haven't been authorized to take? You feel older than your age, not physically, but in the weight you carry and the maturity you never chose. At 9 years old, you understood things about people that most adults still miss. Psychologists describe this as compressed emotional development. Early responsibility forced the brain to skip the lighter stages of growth entirely. You didn't grow up fast because you wanted to. You grew up fast because someone needed you to. You replay goodbyes longer than anyone else. A friendship that faded years ago still takes up space in your mind. Not because you want it back, because your brain never received a clean ending. The nervous system stores unresolved bonds as open loops, incomplete patterns that keep circling until the brain finds closure or exhaustion. You are not being dramatic. You are processing an exit that never fully closed. You find yourself most at peace alone, not because you dislike people, because solitude is the only place your nervous system isn't performing. No one to scan, no moods to decode, no masks to maintain. In those early years, quiet meant safe. Your brain still treats solitude as the only room that never required anything from you. Solitude isn't escape. It's the only room where you get to exist without cost. This isn't a diagnosis. It's a recognition. The same depth that makes you feel alien in a crowded room is what makes you the person others call when everything falls apart. The same pattern recognition that drains you at a dinner party is what lets you understand human pain with terrifying precision. You don't belong in most rooms, but the rooms that need depth and honesty were built for exactly the kind of mind you carry. The loneliness doesn't disappear because you understand it, but it loses its grip. It stops telling you something is wrong with you and starts telling you that you were wired for a frequency most people will never hear. You'll still catch that frown across the table, but now you know it's not your job to fix it. Some doors were never yours to walk through, and that's not a loss, that's clarity.